Vivien Thomas, Changing the World of Medicine. Vivien Thomas spent his entire life following and trying to exemplify his father's belief. I learned the lesson, which I still remember and try to adhere to. Whatever you do, always do your best. Vivien Thomas, an African-American surgical assistant with no formal education, triumphed over the tragedies of discrimination by creating innovative surgical tools which led to groundbreaking medical techniques for heart surgeries.
I would want people to understand that he was the most kind and the most steadiest person I believe I have ever met.
Thomas was never given any credit for his ideas and efforts in the medical field. In one word, he was forgotten. Thomas worked alongside Dr. Alfred Blalock. Dr. Blalock was praised and honored for his medical expertise, and Thomas was a shadow in the background. Thomas endured many obstacles, however, they never undermined his determination to excel in the medical community. His story began in New Iberia, Louisiana on August 29, 1910. Monsieur Thomas married Mary Eaton, and they had their fourth son named Vivien. After a few years, Vivien's parents decided to move to Nashville for more job opportunities. In the city, Vivien's father worked above and beyond to supply the needs for his family. But as an African American, he had few options. With his savings, he planned on starting school in the fall at Tennessee State College. He wanted to make a difference and develop methods in which he could cure sick patients. His lifelong goal was to become a doctor, but tragically, when the stock market crashed in the fall of 1929, it left not only his finances dissolved, but also his dreams. Frantically searching for work after he lost his job, Thomas found himself working as a carpenter. Unfortunately, that position was terminated. Without the ability to pay for his medical school, he had to find a job so his family could survive. Eventually, he found employment at Vanderbilt University as a lab technician. It is here that his partnership with Dr. Blalock began. The moment Dr. Blalock met him, Blalock knew he was exactly what he needed and wanted in order to fulfill his experiments and research. This began Thomas' lifetime partnership with Blalock in the field of cardiovascular surgery, a partnership that would influence the world still today. Blalock stated upon hiring Thomas, "As time goes on, I'm getting more and more involved with patients and hospital duties. I'm going to carry on my research and laboratory work, and I want someone in the laboratory whom I can teach to do anything I can do, and maybe do the things I can't do." However, there was a setback in the situation. Thomas was employed as a janitor. He made little to no pay, with a salary of $12 a week. Not only was the pay slim, he also received no recognition because of the color of his skin. During this time, World War II was raging at its peak. Soldiers wounded on battlefields were often victims of toxic shock. Thomas had worked alongside Blalock for 15 years, and during that time carried out experiments on toxic shock. With Thomas's assistance, Blalock was able to show that a toxic agent was provoked by rapid blood loss and could be reversed by a blood transfusion. This idea saved not hundreds or thousands, but probably millions of lives. Helen Taussig was a well-known pediatric cardiologist in Baltimore who helped change the face of medicine. She was intrigued by a medical condition that affected babies and young children. Taussig approached Dr. Blalock concerning babies being born with a heart defect called tetralogy of Fallot, or what was more commonly known as blue baby syndrome. The defect was caused by malformations of the heart.
I began to push him, didn't you?
I kicked into him and I said, "Dr. Blalock, I stand in awe and admiration of your surgical skill. But the really great day will come when you build me a ductus for a cyanotic child, and not when you close a ductus for a child who had a little too much blood going to the lungs." And he gave a sigh. He really thought he'd done something. Then he said to me, "When that day comes, this will seem like child's play."
As time went on, once Vivien had a clear understanding of blue baby syndrome, he began his research. To conduct his experiments, he would test operations on animals. In the early 1900s, Thomas and Blalock had completed experimental surgery on hundreds and hundreds of dogs. He considered the arguments of the protesters and understood their reasons for being upset. However, he believed that the medical advancements would not have been possible without the vital animal testing. With the technique for the procedure almost being completed, he needed to get the surgical tools he needed. In the 1940s, there were only a few commercial manufacturers that made surgical tools, especially one small enough for Thomas to operate on a small child. He began to study all the tools that he would need for the operation and found ways to improve and make them more successful. Then it happened. In 1944, Thomas discovered how to connect the subclavian artery to the pulmonary artery using a suture as small as a wire. After watching Thomas's exceptional skills, Blaylock mumbled that his work was so close to perfection that it might have been something the Lord had made. They then waited for their time to perform the surgery. On November 29, 1944, Elaine Saxton was rushed into Johns Hopkins with a severe case of blue baby syndrome. She was 12 pounds underweight with a sick blue tint to her skin. Gasping for air, she seemed on the verge of heart failure. Blaylock was unprepared, yet he had perfected the procedure. He insisted that he should not operate, but Taussig thought differently. Due to lack of schooling and racial influences, Thomas was not allowed to conduct medical procedures, let alone be in the operating room. However, as the operating room was being prepared, Blaylock called to one of his assistants and said, "I guess you better go call Vivien." Blaylock was incredibly insecure about the procedure and needed Vivien by his side answering any questions he might have. Dr. Cooley, another doctor in the operating room, remembered Blaylock asking, "Should I do it this way or that way?" And Vivien would instantly respond knowing the answer. After the surgery was completed, the color suddenly began to reappear back in Elaine Saxton's cheeks. Her sick blue lips turned pink, and with that, the operation was a success. As Dr. Taussig had hoped, we, like plumbers, had changed the pipes to get more blood to the lungs. We had found what pipes to put where. Shortly after Elaine's recovery, news reporters wrote about this miraculous recovery in a girl who was once blue but now had a radiant glow. Articles in bold text described it as the Blaylock-Taussig shunt, saying that they had saved our doomed blue babies. Doctors from all around the country traveled to Johns Hopkins in hopes of seeing future operations. Through all of this, Thomas humbly sat back in the shadows, never claiming the accolades he deserved. Not a word was mentioned about the African-American lab technician that had not only discovered how to perform the surgery, but had taught Blaylock everything he knew. Taussig and Blaylock broke the laws of medicine and were worshipped for their success. They could have easily given Thomas an ounce of credit, but they kept the spotlight on themselves. Vivien Thomas never fulfilled his dreams of becoming a doctor or being honored for his outstanding contributions to medical advancements. He dedicated his entire life to medicine. He even tried to attend Morgan State University, but realizing he would be 50 years old by the time he would complete his schooling, Thomas gave up his lifelong dream. Instead, he decided to recruit nearly 36 black technicians to continue his legacy. 2 of them, including Levi Watkins and Richard Scott, would later on become the first black surgical residents at Johns Hopkins. This paved the way for African Americans so they could play a role in the modern medicine. Vivien Thomas never received the credit he deserved because he was a man of color. Nevertheless, he overcame these tragedies and triumphantly made discoveries, such as designing new, innovative surgical equipment, making groundbreaking work in toxic shock, and curing blue baby syndrome. In addition, he became an instructor of surgery to technicians and doctors in the cardiovascular field. Ultimately, his efforts saved not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of lives. Thomas defied limitations society placed in front of him. He accomplished above and beyond what he was predicted to do. Thomas had done the impossible. He had conquered. He had triumphed. I had always taken my activity in life as a personal matter, yet now I began asking questions. Was my story worth the effort? Would others really be interested? Vivien Thomas.